Hi, and welcome to the syntax lab section. What I want you to do today in the lab section is to practice a couple of things so that you can be completely on page with what we've been talking about in syntax. So remember that the most important thing that you have to remember in syntax are the phrase structure rules that you will need to draw your syntactic trees. And you can definitely expect a question on drawing syntactic trees in your final. So that is something that I absolutely want you to nail. If you haven't taken a look at the handout that I posted on Blackboard last week, I highly recommend you to do that, or keep the handout with you while you go over the lab section. The first exercise that I have for you is called identifying constituents, because that's really where you want to start with when you talk about syntactic trees. So I have a couple of different sentences right here, and I want you to identify the underlined phrases with respect to what the phrases are. So are they noun phrases? Are they verb phrases? We haven't really talked about adjectival phrases in this class, but you kind of know what they are. They are basically an adjective followed by anything else, right? So an adjectival phrase, an adverbial phrasing, and we haven't really talked about adverbs, but there is one instance in here which is an adverb. Adverbs are things like completely, fortunately, etc., that can appear in many different parts of the sentence, actually, not just a dedicated position in a sentence. The prepositional phrase in a sentence. So what I want you to do is I want you to go through each of these sentences and identify them as the noun phrase, the VP, adjective phrase, etc. And I will put up this lecture slide, PowerPoint lecture on Blackboard, so you can easily download it and then do it. And then I'll also have the answers on the next lecture slide. The next question that I want you to do is replacement and movement. So this is basically constituency testing. So I've given you an example over here on how to do constituency testing. I've given you the sentence, these children love anything chocolate, and I've told you that you can actually show that there are three kinds of constituents within this. You have the subject, which is these children, you have the object, which is anything chocolate, and then the verb phrase, which is love anything chocolate. So you can have a pronoun like they or it, or an auxiliary verb like do replacing any of these phrases, right? So that's substitution test. And you can also have movement test, which is another constituency testing. So these children play with matches. You can actually move all the kind of phrases in these children being subject, matches being the object, and then with matches being the prepositional phrase, and play with matches being the VP. So you can do, it is these children who play with matches, where you're moving the subject. It is matches that these children play with, where you're moving just the object. And then play with matches is what these children do, right? And then you can also have one more that I haven't put up on this slide. You can do, it is with matches that these children play, where you're moving just the prepositional phrase, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to practice both the substitution test as well as a movement test on all these three sentences. Children who play with matches need lessons in fire safety. Fire safety lessons may not work for all such children. These children may need lessons of a different sort, right? So for each of these sentences, first start with the label bracketing. That's really going to give you an indication of how many phrases there are, right? What are the constituents? Right? And then you can test whether you are right, and these are the actual constituents, by doing both substitution with pronoun test and the movement test. All right, so individually do each of these sentences. And the last thing that I want you to do for the lab section is to practice drawing syntactic trees. I have given you a couple of different sentences, and I've also given you the answers on this lecture slide. So I want you to do the tree structure for Dave Likes Tom. Start with the label bracketing, identify the rules that you need, draw the skeleton, and then you draw the tree structure. And because I mean, the problem with the video is that I don't have access to a Blackboard. I mean, you know that I worked with a whiteboard before, but with the tree structure, it's very difficult to do it even with the whiteboard. So what I'm going to do is I really want you to see me do one of these examples. I will open up a Word document, And then I will show you how to do Dave likes Tom, so you can see me actually do this in practice, right, like live. But I do have the answer for that over here, and I have a couple of other sentences like cool kids think that nachos rule. I have the answer again. A nice old man with a limp sold firearms to many deranged clowns. I don't come up with these sentences. These are textbook examples, just in case you wonder. Here's an example. Here's a tree structure for that. The teacher told the students an unbelievable story about angry bears. Tree structure. The ridiculous idea that students deserve corporal punishment died out by the early 70s here. All right. So I'll put up the lecture slide on Blackboard so you will be able to see it. And then individually draw the trees before you check the answer on the next lecture slide. But what I want to do now is to give you a demonstration of how you do a syntactic tree structure. So you start with the sentence, right? So this is Dave likes Tom, right? So that's the sentence that I want you to do first. What you first do is you identify, let me just increase the, okay, I think that's better, right? Okay. So you first start with bracket, the label bracketing step. This whole thing is a sentence, right? Now you first identify the subject, right, which is Dave. Let's do all the subscripting later. So Dave is the subject, and it's an NP, right, because it's a noun phrase. And then you have the predicate, which is your VP, right, which is likes Tom. And then you also have another NP, which is your object NP, right? So now you can subscript all these things. So that's sentence NP, VP, and then your object NP. Now within the NP, you have your Dave, which is your N, right? So it's your noun. So again, we can subscript that. And then within the VP, you have your likes, which is your V. And then within this NP, you have your Tom, which is your N, right? So you have your VP, you have your V, you have your NP, and your N, right? That's the entire label bracketing, right? Now your next step is to identify the rules that you need. You definitely need your sentence rule, right? Because you have S right there, so you know that you have to start with the sentence. Your sentence rule says the S can optionally go to an NP or a CP, right, and a VP. Do you need your NP rule? Yes, you need your NP rule, right? Your NP rule says you can go to an optional V, an optional A star, an obligatory N, then you have the CP, right? And then the PP star, right? And then you have your VP rule, right? Because you have a VP, so you need to have your VP rule, right? Your VP rule says you need to go to your obligatory V, then you have your optional NP, and then you have your curly bracket, you have your next optional NP, comma, CP, right? So either the second NP or the CP, and then you have the PP star, right, outside the curly bracket. Do you need your PP rule? You do not need your PP rule because you have not identified the prepositional phrase or prepositions anywhere. Do you need your CP rule? You also don't need your CP rule because you have not identified any sentences or complementizers either. So we have all three rules that we need to draw the sentence. Now what we do is we start by drawing the skeleton. So you always start top down. So you start with the S, right? And then you go down to your subject, and you go down to your object, your VP, right? All right, so that's what I wanted. Um, so now you have identified, if you look at your label bracketing, you have identified correctly that your sentence consists of an NP, not a CP. So you put NP at this node, and then you put VP, right? Because you have identified that the second thing that your sentence has is a verb phrase. Now what you do is you break this down further into the smaller structure. So the NP goes down to an N, and the VP goes down to the V and the NP, right? So NP goes down to the N, and the VP goes down to the V and the NP, right? So that's exactly what you want to do. You want to, again, draw down your line structure. So there's, and then for your VP, you draw the branching, right? Because you need to branch your VP out, because that's what you've identified. So you have your NP goes down to an N, right? The N right here. And the VP goes down to the V and your NP, right? So this is not the N, because you also have, well, your NP is done, your subject is done, but your VP again has the NP goes down to the N part, right? So you again need one more branching, just your NP going down to the N, right? So let me just make this a little shorter. All right. Now you have the skeleton of the tree structure. Dave likes Tom, right? What you next do is you just input in all the words, right? So you have your NP goes down to N, which is Dave. Well, you can also draw one more line down, right? You can draw one more line down here, just so that everything will be on the same line. You're not required to do that, but it's good to do that, right? Because it looks neater that way. So let's do that. Let's draw all the lines down, right? All right. So we have all the 3 lines down. And then the last step is to insert Dave likes Tom. Dave likes Tom, right? S goes to NPVP, NP goes down to the N, goes down to Dave, VP goes to the V, likes, NP goes to N, and Tom. All right, so this is what I want you to do with the rest of these sentences. So Dave likes Tom. Here I have the tree structure for you, and then all the other sentences. All right, so once you do this, you will have ample practice for the phrase structure rules and syntactic trees. If you have any questions, let me know, because, I mean, I have 2 sets of students who really like phonetics and phonology, and then students who really like syntax and semantics. So you might be one of the kinds who like phonetics and phonology better. So do feel free to ask me any questions if anything is unclear.